many times when we are asked to speak, there's a process we go through. And I was thinking, okay, these ones who have been professionally trained, let me see if they don't suffer from the dilemma of public speaking. But clearly, as the clock works, ladies and gentlemen, we all suffer from that. And even when Coach George came, I was like, and he suffered from the disease. Each of us, when we are asked to speak in public, there's a sense of panic. But many of us, when we say the first word, the fear disappears. But the journey to the public speaking puts you in a situation of turmoil. And if you don't do that, honestly, you're going to get wrong. We must prepare. We must prepare in the sense that we've got to think about the audience we are going to talk about. So I know most of you have been classmates, and from what you're talking here, I don't know how well you understand your audience or how well you thought about the topic you wanted to talk about. But when George was hounding me down, by the way, today is the first day we met physically. I don't know his attraction to me. I tried to dodge around. You see, George was, we must have you. I don't know why. I hope I make it worth his while. But what I know is that you must prepare. So I kept asking him little questions of now these people who are graduating, how long have they been studying public speaking? These people who you're asking me to speak to, how old are they? What are their interests? Where are they from? And any public speaker must research about who they're talking about. He didn't give me very good answers, so if I go wrong, you know who to blame, right? But we must prepare. Think about your audience. So like he said earlier, there's something that I was taught. I think naturally I can speak. My father says I've been talking since I was 2 years old. Any normal kid starts at 3. I started speaking at 2. That's what my father always says. And I'm still speaking. Possibly I'll die speaking. But that's not really the issue. Even with a natural gift, I don't know who's a good singer here, you know that you must practice. And I liked what the good doctor asked, who stood in front of the mirror? And people didn't really answer, but I'm sure so many of you talk to your shampoo bottle, talk to your toothbrush, talk to your what? We must practice. You must practice how to speak. I used to be a very fast speaker, so when Coach George was talking about you are speaking very fast, I remember 1,000 years ago when I used to speak. And I was a good actor, but I recall my headmistress. I went to many schools, but one of them is Namagunga, where we used to act. And I had this headmistress who would literally count. So you can imagine how fast I talked. She would say, my dear girl Litho, you need to go right back up to the stage, and there are these very steep stairs. And then she'd tell me to take 1, 2, and then she would point, and then I would speak the next word. So I remember this particular occasion when I was John the Baptist, and I was announcing the arrival of Christ, those of you who know the story of Jesus. And I would come, repent for the kingdom of God. Hey, then she would say, go back. And I would have to say, repent. And then she would signal. Then I would say, repent. Then she would say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is close at hand. And it was so much pain for me to slow down, but you realize that you must practice. And today I can speak relatively like a normal person, because when you speak too fast, you lose the audience. You must learn when to say things quickly. You must learn when to pause. Pausing also helps when we're in fear, and the audience might think it's deliberate. So some of you started off so well here, and then you looked at someone's face, I don't know, they winced, and you went into panic. So you know when you speak, you must learn who to avoid. There are people who are good friends, but they'll make you panic. You know, those of you, I don't know, you might be very young, but you must have heard of people like Ballet Francis. Those are some of the people who trained me, and the way they read the news is not the way they talk when you meet them on the street. So also, which kind of public speaking are you doing? Who are you talking to? You must think about that as you prepare and bring down. And another thing we were taught is that, you know, public speaking It is just 10% of talking. The other 90% is managing yourself, as you must have realized there. Because just walking, when they mention your name to go there, so some of you go like this, as you made your way up there. So the 90%, you're busy managing yourself, you're busy managing the nerves, you're busy managing how you sound, you're busy managing many things, and that is why the first rule of public speaking is your appearance. I went to a class that they called power dressing. The colors you wear, the shoe you wear, how you look like, and unfortunately for us, the ladies, a man could turn up in the same shirt the next day and nobody really, bothers. But if I appear tomorrow like this, doctor, she doesn't even, that is the same dress. Or if he invites me next day, that is the same dress she wore last year at our graduation. So you must think about what you're wearing, where you're going. As ladies, unfortunately, our bodies is that amazing. It is a bit disruptive. So you must think, will I go up the stairs? Will my dress get higher? Maybe I should wear trousers. Is my dress transparent? Can they see through my... Because those things disrupt your message, I can assure you. So you must think about what you're going to wear, the color you're going to wear, the message. How about my topic? Who am I talking to? So you find sometimes they say, today, like I've told you, I've been in infrastructure. Sometimes you're talking to different communities, and the only opportunity to talk to people is in church. I know a lot of us want to wear our jeans and T-shirts. And for me, when I started working, we had those tops that went here. And I recall my very first assignment, there was a riot in Old Kampala. Sometimes we learn retrospectively. And so, in the newsroom, they tell you, run. I started as a journalist, a foot soldier. So we ran to Old Kampala, and I was in my jeans and cropped jeans, a Makerere University student. And there was nothing wrong with how I was dressed in my world, in my little head. But I was going to a Muslim community that is doing what? It is even rioting. And then as we approached, people came shouting towards me. And, I wasn't bothered. What's going on? And the lady came running and wrapped me in a lace way. Like, you, Magenda Kukuba. Those of you who know Luganda, they're going to beat you. And I'm like, why would they beat me? Like, don't you see the way you're dressed? I'm like, how am I dressed? I'm fully covered. Like, no. These are Muslim, those men. But basically, she broke it down for me, and it occurred to me that, oh, wait a minute, there's something wrong with how I'm dressed. But until years later, but it still didn't register. There's that age when you're irrational or unreasonable, or you think you know it all, you're the only one who is right. But as I grew, as I refined myself, should I say, I learned that when you think about your audience, you must think about how you dress. We have projects where you have to beg people to go through their land, either to build a road or to put a power line. My dear, the way you're dressed will switch off people. And men, for some reason, they don't have to worry about this so much. They will hardly wear shorts, I think for obvious reasons. Who knows the obvious reasons? The legs, but there are those with nice legs. But usually men are okay. He'll be in a decent T-shirt, he'll be in trousers. But for women, we like to be flamboyant, and it can be disruptive to the message. So I would like each of us here today to think about that. Where am I going? Who am I speaking to? How am I dressed? Because like I told you, anything could go wrong. One of the things that goes wrong is wardrobe malfunction. A button might fly off as you're going up. Your shoe heel might break off as you're going up. You might stretch like this, you're in a tight dress, pop, and it gives way around here. Those things actually happen. But when these things do happen, how do you manage yourself? You must learn to continue. Pause a little bit. Any good speaker must learn to change the script. There are things I'd written, but I saw some of you trying to remember. It has gone. And part of why it has gone is that you're panicking. Just quickly run to something else. Tell a story. Crack a joke. Guys, let's first stand up and clap. Do something. But never give away that you're panicking. But we all panic, we all worry, we all prepare. So those are some of the principles. I like to share many stories. Maybe I'll just share one more. in the interest of time. Yes, how you use your voice, the confidence. I'd put down a lot of things, but I just thought I should focus on those issues that we battle with as public speakers. So the issue of preparation, the issue of knowing your audience, the issue of perseverance, and how you use your voice, your tone. When she spoke, I forget her name. Nidal. I almost wanted to request them, can you allow her to speak in another language? Because I felt that, yes, despite the fact that she was struggling with English, you could tell that she is a good public speaker. And she had our attention. And we kept clapping to encourage her, but I think she's confident. And she knew how to deal with her gaps, you know, when that would happen. And like many of you kept saying, oh, it's not about the language, it is not about what, but when you choose a language to use, it is important how you speak that language. Otherwise, you have no business speaking it. You'd rather get a translator because you sound terrible. I can assure you, it matters, at least in the world I live in. It matters how you speak the language you choose to use. So if you have a challenge with the language, practice or get a translator. If you're good at Luganda, train in Luganda. Get someone to, as you perfect that language. If you're good at Arabic and there's an opportunity, use Arabic. Because the more confidence you have, the better. Now, if you're dealing with the language, you're dealing with the stage fright, you're dealing with a broken shoe, really, it is very hard to get there. But also we must learn what we are speaking about. So a lot of you got it wrong on your topic and how you related with us and how you spoke. If you're speaking personal financing, how do you deliver financing message? Do you bring around some figures? Do you give around some examples that shows us how to get there? You know? If you're talking farming, how do you teach us how to plant? How do you present it? And I think the person of the farming, you should have used the approach of the doctor of, you know, farming is a really difficult topic. So I think some images could have enhanced. So we should also know when to use images. I know I don't have any, but you should know when to use pictures. You should know when to use a short video. And I don't know if this is how we train, but I realize you have the same style of starting. Everyone talked a few things, then they introduced themselves. And I waited, okay, let me wait for the next one. And everyone ended in the same way. And I am so and so. Learn to have your own style. It makes you authentic. It makes it easier. Start with a video. 1 minute video. You know, like those of you who are in broadcast, she talked a bit about media. Every second matters. A 30-second video can feel like a 5 minutes video. So you can do a 1 minute video. You can start with a story. When I was a little girl, you know? You know, as I was coming today, or you just start with your name, I'm Dr. Patricia Litho, I'm here today to speak to you about this. It also depends on the topic. So the person speaking about finance should not start the same way as a person speaking about getting out of a prison, you know? So I think we need to work on that. Have a personal style, make it yours, make it authentic. Yeah? I could go on and on and on, but I'll share one last story. I recall when I was at university, I decided to attempt politics. And so I decided to stand for speaker. Those of you who know Makerere, where are you? Aha, good. So I was in Mary Stewart Hall. Boxoye? Yes, and that made me win the votes. But I decided to stand for speaker 1,000 years ago when I was there. And, you know, it is so easy to knock at a colleague's door and find 3, 4 people in a room and say, you know, I'm Patricia, I want to stand this, and they will, you know. And, you know, students are like kids, they're quite harsh. They will tell you in your face what the problem is. And one of the things I was being told that, no, you can't make a good speaker. Not because you can't speak, but you alienate yourself. You know, Mary Stewart has this long hall in the middle. And people stand there and watch it like every day when it's mealtime, you're the people who walk to one, they get to eat better food. So how will you represent us? Okay, so I had that. Those of us who ate only on Thursday when there was chicken. So I'd been noted for that. So I knew I have to work around this. So people, had those concerns. And then also there was the issue about the school you came from and how many people in that hall came from that school. Just like the bigger country politics. It's not about rationality. It's about certain loyalties. And then another student who was quite good but disadvantaged is that this was a fourth year, an agriculture student. We expect you to be in cover and I don't know what you're doing here looking for votes. And for me, the only reason that I wanted to be in leadership was to have my own room. Because I'd had issues. I didn't like my roommates when I was in first year. Of course, first year, they just bundle you up and you say, okay, next year I am going to choose who I share a room with, and I did. But I ended up with totally different people. I don't know how many of you here are very religious. But I am not very religious, but I believe in God. So you see, I was put in this room with two Tanzanian ladies, and that's not where the issue is. It's how they practice religion. They were born-again Christians. They were always praying and singing, praying before we bed, praying before we eat, before we wake up, before we sleep. I was totally on the other side. Every time I woke up, I'm going to dance. So they're always busy praying for me, and they brought for me pastors to pray for me. And I'm like, the only way out of this, because I don't have money to buy, sometimes, like Uganda, if you have money to buy your way around, you have your way around. And so I said, I don't have money to bribe for a room. I am going to stand for a leadership position. And so I kept shifting, but I settled for this one. So it turned out that I had odds against me, but I knew I could speak. And we're looking for a speaker, right? So I said, I'm going to capitalize on that. So unlike other positions, the position of a speaker, you came and addressed these many, many rowdy girls, and then you went and stood, and people lined up against you. And you're not allowed to turn. But the trick is you put a close friend behind you, and they tell you, your line is getting longer, your line is getting shorter. People are shifting to the next line. It's quite terrifying. So one thing I had learned about Makerere is knowing your culture. Like that was the super currency. So for me in my head, I'm like, okay, they don't like me for this, they don't like me for that, let me just wait. Then again, I was a jeans and t-shirt girl. And that's another feedback that came when I was campaigning. You're not even a lady, da 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 da. So I noted that. And that I shocked them and turned up in a dress. I learned that lesson early. But again, because that wasn't the way I used to dress. I know when you see me now, you're like, no, you're telling a lie. I actually had issues with dressing like this. Oh, thank you. My mom should hear this. And she was always, the dress. So the dresses were there, but I never wore them. So I went home and picked an outfit. And so that I turned up in, a long skirt and a matching top, something my parents had bought me and had packed it somewhere. But I was really feeling uneasy because that isn't me. But I knew this is one of the reasons. When you speak and you turn up, let's say I'm in this micro skirt, I don't think any of you would be hearing what I'm saying. You'll just be busy looking down, 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 down. And my legs are quite disruptive. Yeah, like many ladies. But, if I wore a dress that stopped about here and I bent, the boys, I'll just be like here. And he's not hearing what I'm saying. So we must remember that. As ladies, we have disruptive bodies. So what do we think about? Yes, you have to worry about what you dress, your hair. I thought about my hair. I know there's no evidence. But I worried about how I'm going to look, what shoe I have to wear, what dress I have to wear. And so I did that, and the day came, and the first person spoke, very well put together, she had that odds of being a fourth year. So I knew, okay, that one is not a threat. Then the other one came and spoke. She was from Nabisusa. She had this great following. I was like, I'm finished. So it came me, and they had hired the boys from Lumumba. Who knows the bugle? That thing they blow? And they were already saying, and I used to be really tiny, still very hard to imagine me in that size, but I was extremely tiny and short. And they just said, baby, Viveko, you're not really discouraging me. But they didn't know that my voice is 1,000 years old. So when I got the microphone, I didn't even make any valid point. Again, my emphasis is that know your audience and why you're there. They're not interested in what they were saying. They just want someone who can speak. So there you are. I came and I said, Boxoy, Lumumboy. And then you had to know the insults. You know, you have to abuse the other people. And so I abused the other group. I don't know, Africa, Malaya, I don't know what, Rue, Kabinda, homosexual. You know, I had to do that. And the crowd stopped, and the crowd shifted, and the crowd listened, and they screamed. And I just told them, ladies, you need a voice. You need a voice to speak for you when there is no chicken on Thursday. You need a voice to do this. You need a voice. And people, we vote, Boxoy. And we went to line up, and I became a speaker. What am I saying? Know your audience. Know what matters to them. Yeah? So all the rubbish I've written here might not really matter if I don't understand what this is about. So to me today, it's about public speaking, how we must prepare, and just to know that we all panic. We all have to prepare. Please research your audience, and you'll have them. But don't abandon the mirror. Thank you so much.